So the first game we want to start with is this. And you'll notice I'm using my usual screen. I haven't switched yet. And this is one of the first things I want you guys to take note of. Whenever you finish playing a game, I believe the best thing you should do is don't go straight into the analysis. Look through the game from your perspective, right? Try and go through what you were thinking during the game, where you thought there were interesting things that happened within the game, and try to think for yourself about the position firstly. So make mental notes, or if you can, take a book. It's good to have a book. Take a book, take a look at certain positions in the game that piqued your interest, or where you felt you made the biggest mistake, or where you felt you had a chance to make a big turning point and for some reason you couldn't do so, right? And take notes of those positions. Try and think about the position and ask, what could I have done better? Find the answers to those questions, and when you are finally done and you have your own mind concerning the analysis, then you move on to the engine analysis and have the engine's backing rather than trying to rely solely on the engine. What that does is that it takes away from your ability to think about the position, because you're always, what does the engine say? But if you're able to figure out the position yourself and then you move to the engine, when the engine starts giving you suggestions, it becomes easier to understand what it could be going for, and it makes you appreciate your understanding of the chess position. Because if the engine does agree with you, then it does feel good, rather than just going straight to the engine and saying, oh, mechanical master, what do you think about this position? So that is why I haven't switched the analysis engine yet, and I'm sticking on this page. So let's just assume I just played a game, and we are on the closing board. Now we're going to look at the game from the beginning and figure out what we can think about this position. Like I said, I played this game quite a while ago, so I don't remember what the key moments were. But as the game is going, I might remember, and I would make some points for you guys to know. So as always, d4, d5, bishop f4, knight f6. You can also break down your analysis into stages and focus on the opening, middle game, and then end game. Or you can do what I'm going to do right now, is to just focus on when you think the biggest issue came in and then solve those ones. That is more of a skimming kind of analysis. It's not an in-depth analysis, just trying to look for your mistakes and then correcting them. Not much in a sense of improvements. But what you would also like to do is to go through the opening and find out what you could do to make your opening better. Maybe your opponent played something you weren't ready for. What could you do to still keep your initiative maybe as white, or to push for equality as black? Those kind of things. So e3, bishop f5, and bishop f5, I've begun to realize is most people's ways of counteracting the landing, in the sense that what I know is this bishop is one of the key pieces, or the key attacking pieces of the landing. So most often they play this move to prevent the bishop from getting to its optimal square, which targets the king side. Of course, it doesn't mean that you are losing as a landing player. It just takes away from what you are mostly used to. And you could decide to keep the bishops on by playing bishop to e2, or you could go for a trade, which is one of the lines I've been experimenting on. But here I played c4. If I played c4 here, then I think I was trying to remember something I was taught about if your opponent plays bishop to f5. There are many things you can do here, but I'm guessing I was trying to figure out what happens if I play c4, and that was the whole point of this game. So I played c4 here. We have e6, knight c3, bishop to d6. So far I think the position is fine. Bishop g3, I'm a little bit skeptical about it, but I still think it's an okay move. Bishop takes g3, h takes g3, and knight c6. I still think the position is quite even, but now I'm getting a little bit skeptical, thinking about where my opponent is going to castle. Granted, I'm thinking maybe I should have gone for my usual idea of trading of the bishops. Maybe that could have been better, right? Going for this bishop trade. If, of course, my opponent trades, queen takes is fine. Of course, there's also the other line I like to play, which is if bishop takes, then pawn takes, and then possibly going for some sort of queenside expansion. it's beginning to look cleaner to me than what I did. So here you can see how I'm thinking about the position. So even though I've gone all the way into the future, I'm still going back into the past. That even though this game looks even, I'm not enjoying the position. Again, I still can't do much, and with the trades that have gone on so far, the position is beginning to look very, very stale, and I'm not really seeing my offensive punch, right? I don't see how I get some kind of aggressive thing going. It's like this game is purely positional. Now, I do like positional chess, but not in this kind of situation. It might just be fine, but like I said, anything could be going on here. Hey, I do not accept this name. But welcome. So we are looking at how to analyze games, and we are looking at one of the games I played, and I'm going through it step by step. So yeah, I think what I was expecting was to get, for example, after playing this c4 move, I was expecting to get like this move, and the point is to kind of but push black into a position they enjoy playing. So you'd actually get queen here, and then pawn push, and then your opponent would have to go back or trade off the queens, and this should be good for white. So this is what I was expecting, but for some reason that didn't happen, and maybe it's because I didn't play this well. But of course my opponent played bishop here, and I think that's what changed the whole position. So I think this is a position I'll have to think about. Bishop to d6. So we'll keep that on our radar. So like I'm saying, we're trying to think about the position by ourselves before we go into the engine's thoughts about the position. So now it's come to our mind that, okay, two things we're going to look at is if c4 is the best move here. c4 is not bad. He did. That's great. If you can find the video, that'll be fine. If you can't, don't worry. So c4 is the first thing I'll look at. Not to say it's the bad move, but is it an okay move to play in this position? And then I'll find games that were played in this exact same position. So c4 is the first thing I'm going to look at. And the next thing we're going to look at here is if I should have played bishop to g3. Or maybe it was Rosen. Both of them could have done it, sincerely. So bishop to g3, fine. We'll look at those moves. So bishop to g3 and then c4. Bishop takes g3, h takes g3, and like I said, the position looks too stale. Like it looks too evenish, and this is not what you want in the London, right? It looks too evenish for me. Queen b3, like I said, that was the plan I was going for. There's if you look at where the pieces are facing, I'm putting a lot of pressure on the central square, so which is one of the reasons why queen comes in here. The second reason is to also put pressure on this pawn. Of course, it's easily defended. Knight a5, and here I played queen a3. Okay, queen a3 is very obvious. You are preventing your opponent from castling, but it doesn't look like a sensible move. Honestly speaking, it doesn't look like a sensible move. Reason why I say that is you've just misplaced your queen. Now, it's going to be actually difficult for your queen to get back into the game. Maybe, of course, there's a move like b4. Maybe b4 is an idea. Yeah, but this whole idea of trying to block this side doesn't really work. I think the opponent can easily deal with that. If not, they can even launch their own kind of attack or something. It doesn't look like a safe thing to do. This is a pretty ambitious move. Trying to keep the initiative by preventing the opponent from castling, but it doesn't look like you can stop the opponent. So queen a3 I don't like. Queen a3 I don't like. Takes, check, putting pressure on the pawn. Knight jumps back and then we take. Of course, there's no fork, so we are okay about that. But again, like I say, the queen, I don't like its position. Castles, of course, like I said. So if the point of bringing the queen here was to stop him from castling and he could easily avert that, then there was no point in doing this. Granted, I'm liking... my opponent, I don't think, played the right thing. I am liking this position for me simply because of the position of my bishop, the open file. I think it's okay for me. I think my opponent actually made my position slightly better despite the wrong move I made here. Rook to b8. I don't get this move. I don't get why my opponent would play rook to b8, concerning the fact that I am not attacking anything here. Of course, the obvious thing here is that he wants to play for the fork, but the reason why, again, you're not just looking at your moves, you're looking at your opponent's moves, right? And the reason why this I think is bad for my opponent is that you are trying to play a fork, which I can easily avoid. And of course, like I said, my queen is misplaced, so I'd want to bring my queen back anyway. So you playing this motivates me to do what I was already planning on doing. And first of all, I don't even have to move now. If you play this, I can just take. So there's no real pressure on me. If you were playing as black, these moves you should watch out for. They are very simple moves with very simple threats, one move threats, and those things are easily dealt with. So don't try those moves. And like I said, I want to retreat my pieces anyway. Bishop goes back. Maybe bishop goes back is suboptimal. Maybe queen goes is better. Maybe queen retreating is better, and then maybe trying to go for something on the queen side. So maybe queen goes first, then bishop. Then if you can get a bishop trade, then we get some sort of offensive play in the position, if you can kind of understand that. So bishop back, knight to e4. Okay. Knight to e4 just takes. Why not takes? Why didn't I take? Why didn't I just take? Yeah, because takes just looks fine. Takes really looks fine. Takes looks fine. So why wouldn't I take here? I mean, if my opponent even does take my knight, I would like that. Interesting thing here is that I can now start kind of piling up pressure on this side. Castle king side, and then switch every idea I have to the queen side. So I think there's an idea I could have considered here. Just taking, opening up the file, allow my opponent to take. So open up the file, let my opponent take with his bishop. I'm not in a hurry to play a move like this. Of course, this is a problem. Maybe not so much a problem like I'm thinking, because I think if you play, for example, bishop here, pawn push, your bishop has to come back here, then you have to face something like this. So even though I'm sacrificing a pawn, I feel like the resulting attack is kind of interesting, because even after pawn push, castle's king side, things are flooding into the position. Yeah, so this is actually looking like an interesting idea that could happen even with the sacrifice of the pawn. So taking the knight just seems like the way to go. So why here? The only logical thing I can think about was that I was trying to win the bishop pair. Not the bishop pair, but I was trying to win the bishop. And that is, I think, very wrong. Sometimes, of course, you have an understanding of the game of chess, so you play certain moves based on those understandings. But sometimes you just have to look objectively at the position and think, what is better than what do you want? And I think that makes it better. So another move to watch out for here is knight here, playing to a preference that I want to be the only one holding the bishop, which is why I play a move like this. So again, this might not be the bad move, but I think this move is slightly inaccurate. It gives my opponent chances to switch his moves. For example, if he just brings his knight back, then I kind of like I'm moving towards a draw or something like that. But anyways, takes, and I still got what I wanted. I don't like how my opponent did this. Of course, you could have brought your queen in. So takes, you could have brought your queen in to hold the position. The whole point is that if takes, you take here, and you keep your pawn structure safe. But here my opponent did this. So this is a slight inaccuracy by my opponent. He creates a weakness. So now we are spotting things in the position. So what changed in the position that we can look at? One of the things we've spotted is that this pawn is weak. And now we can think about how to attack it. Simple ways of attacking it are bishop and then queen here. So we can think about attacking it this way. So if I did that, that was fine. If I didn't do that, that was stupid of me. But yeah, it's very obvious here what your plan is. So sometimes as you are playing the game of chess, especially when traits occur, you want to take a break and look and reanalyze the position to try and figure out where your advantages lie versus where your opponent's advantages lie. And my opponent has a very glaring weakness here, so it's very easy to attack. It's an isolated pawn, very easy to attack. My slight weaknesses here is that my king is not castled, so maybe I want to get my king castled as soon as possible. Yeah, so that's basically what could happen in this game. So bishop to b3. Why bishop to b3? Was it to win this pawn and spoil the pawn structure even more? If so, I get it, but maybe it was a bit too slow. Knight jumps back, avoiding it. Okay, and now we get there. Nice. Rook comes in defending, then we switch our attack. Okay. Exactly. You should always look for weaknesses. If you're not attacking, get out the board. Now, maybe not if you're not attacking. I mean, you should make meaningful moves that kind of force a reaction from your opponent, is what I would say. If that's what you're also trying to say, then that's fine. But yeah, I feel like any move that would force a reaction from your opponent is a good move. Of course, not all moves would force a reaction from your opponent, but sometimes you would make moves that allow your opponent to continue the ideas, and that is just not the way to play the game of chess. You should push your ideas while isolating or sterilizing your opponent's ideas. I think that's the way to go. So yeah, every move here you can see threatens something. So I think I like the way, I think maybe the way I wanted to go about it was not the best. I think going about it straight away maybe allows the opponent to sort of defend, if I would put it this way. Yeah, like he can easily. Exactly. Yes, you bring up a good point there. Yeah, a lot of low-rated players shuffle. Yeah, without. Yeah. Exactly, and I think with this idea, even though I am attacking, it's not strong because my opponent can easily defend it. But when you look at how I went through it in the game, you see something interesting here. So the plan is definitely going to be to attack this pawn, but to do it so obviously does not help. So bishop here first attacks the knight, threatening to win the pawn. I think the problem here is how the opponent reacted. Knight goes back to try and avoid losing the pawn structure and losing the pawn. Now the move comes in, attacking the pawn, and when the opponent defends, you create another weakness by attacking another problem your opponent has. And now your opponent has to defend that, and after that, then you go for this. Now, what's the difference here? The difference between what this position gives and what I showed is simple. It's pretty simple. Bishop, rook, queen, and what's the difference? The knight can actually come back to defend. And secondly, where the queen has to be to defend, right? The knight blocks the queen's defense, but here the knight doesn't interfere with the queen's defense in any way, as compared to what I did, which creates this kind of position. And now my opponent's back row is one piece weaker, and this is actually very good. And now by playing it in the manner in which I played, I don't think I saw this, I doubt I did, but now you already see this. Yeah, I did play e4 here. So board geometry, you notice the board geometry, you notice this, you go e4. You definitely go e4. Yeah, you threaten the fork. So compare this to the other position. You realize that going straight for the attack did not work, but rather slowly easing yourself into the position was the best way by creating what? Forcing moves, which is the argument that Royals and I are talking about here, that you want to make a move that threatens something on the board. And by doing that, you force your opponent's reactions, and those reactions will in turn lead them into positions where they make bad moves, or they are forced to make bad moves which weaken their position, right? So here he has to defend with his he has to defend with his queen or his rook. In the other way place, he could have defended with just his knight and his rook, and his queen would be fine where it was, right? So now the queen has to retreat because of the pin, because of the fork that was incoming. We still get e5 because of course you want to prevent any of these guys from holding the position. And here we now finally win the pawn. Does this mean we are winning the game? No, this is a single pawn, but what have we done? We have forced our opponent's pieces into passive positions. The queen is pretty much not doing anything where it is. The rook is back where he was. The knight is no longer as active as he was on this square. And now we have a very strong center, more space in the position. So right now I'm just stating the elements of chess. space, we have the spatial advantage. Material activity, we have the activity as compared to our opponent. We have the activity. Material count, we have the material count. We are 1 pawn up. King safety, of course our opponent's king seems to be more safe, but he's not as safe. Our king is also not very safe, but I think I would say safety is the same here. Our safety could be better, but we are still safe. And then time is a relative element in chess. It depends on your goals. So what's the goal here? And right now there's no clear cut goal, which of which I can talk about here. But concerning the first 4 points we mentioned, I think 3 are to my advantage. So in this position, we say white is better, right? Or white is slightly better, or white has the advantage. And that's looking at this position. So now my opponent plays this, and like I said, after every exchange or string of exchanges, you have to ask yourself questions. You have to ask yourself questions. And by looking at this position, I now recognize this game. I made a shot on this game. Some things just click into your mind, right? The more you play tactics, the more you see some of these things. And as I'm looking at this game, I've already seen a potential tactic, and I know I did see it in the game. And it has to do with sacrificing your rook on this square. Yeah, king e2. Yeah, so it's just a plain tactic you should see here. If I did not see this tactic, this is a point where I would have to take a note of. So this looks like it works. This seemingly looks like it works, but how does it work? You need the 2 rooks connected. So king e2 seems like the best move you have to play. Of course, after king e2, I think your opponent might have to play this to try and survive. I don't know if he really survives by playing that move, but yeah. d5 doesn't work. d5 doesn't work. I get what you mean by d5. I think d5 here, I guess you're saying. D5 here, and I think your point is if pawn takes, rook takes, and then this is checkmate. Yeah, the reason why d5 doesn't work is because of the position of the king. It's because of the position of the king. You just can't have that. Sorry, here. You just can't have this. You just can't have this. And if you try to run away, you start getting attacked. King position doesn't matter. I think it's very dangerous. I think this is very dangerous. Yeah, I think it's very dangerous. I think that's very dangerous. So yeah, the tactic here is very obvious, and so your opponent should see that yes, you are threatening this mate, but here he doesn't see it. He attacks the queen and allows this, which is checkmate. So that is the first game. Let's switch on to the next screen and then look at what we're talking about concerning the moves. So to kind of summarize, you would want to 1. Analyze without the engine. Here we have 2 types of analysis. The short form analysis, where you only look for and correct any glaring mistakes or key positions that occurred in the game. And then we have the long form analysis, where you break down the game into stages. The opening, where you take notes of any move order errors. The middle game, where you check for potential tactics, aggressive or positional ideas you could have played. And finally the end game, where you confirm if indeed the end game was good for you and whether or not you could have held a draw or even won the position. You should consider using a database in this scenario, as it really helps improve your understanding of the position. Okay, so now we are on the analysis board, and now we are going to confirm what we're thinking with the engine. So now the engine is on, and we're going to confirm what we're thinking in accordance to the engine. So the first thing we said we're going to, so now we'll just skip a lot of things here. The first thing we're going to consider here is c5. So c4 is the move I considered here, and funny enough, the engine does not consider this in any way. It considers the second move I talked about, which was bishop to d3. Oh, okay, nice. Let me see if I can increase the number of lines this thing gives me so that I'll see if it was. Let me make it 4 lines. If I want to see the shame, okay, don't worry, I'll check it after. I'll definitely check it after. Yeah, funny. Bishop d3, knight c3, knight f3, and there's no c4. Now, c4 was not bad. It was not a bad move. It just gave every advantage I had away. So now, this is what we are talking about. Now, this is how you use the engine. Of course, you can still try to figure out what you aim for with c4. So you still go c4 and try to figure out what the ideas of the engine are with c4. Right? So when the engine analyzes the position, you can look through c4 and the possible ideas that come out of c4, and so you know what to do. Now, the reason why this is important is, for Magnus Carlsen is the one who makes this very important. One of the things Magnus Carlsen did to beat stronger players was that he played the least most played lines. Of course, sometimes it was considered to be a bad line, but because it's considered a bad line, most people don't analyze it that deeply. So he would analyze such positions very deeply, and when he sends you into that position, he's much more comfortable than you, and then he would overpower you. So yeah, a slightly less optimal line doesn't mean you shouldn't go through it. Of course, in prep it's a line you should actually consider, and that's what is actually going to help you here. So c4, the move you're looking at is knight c3. Sorry, yeah, look at knight c3, knight f3, bishop d3, queen takes d3. So we are, the follow-up lines are going to go this with this, and then eventually the trade of bishops is going to happen, which I think I should have done. So yeah, and that's sort of like a common denominator here. Okay, knight c3, we have knight c3, c5. Oh, knight c3, c5. Okay, the reason I wouldn't consider c5 is simply because sometimes it's good to keep pawn tension, is what I've learned. Of course, one of the hardest things for me to understand is when to resolve pawn tension. More often than not, from what I know, is that you want to keep pawn tension, but there are situations when you want to resolve pawn tension, and till now I still don't know those kinds of positions. And that's something I still have to learn. So you can see it's still something that's happening here. So with this move, you can see that white still has the initiative. White hasn't lost its initiative by simply playing c4. So c4 is not necessarily a bad move, right? So c4 can still be played. So what you would have to do, what now your work is to do, is that you have to find the moves to play to make sure you still keep the initiative, or you get a better position, if you understand what I'm saying. So let's see if what I played was good. So I played knight c, and after bishop I played queen, and I played back. Yeah, and this is the next move I said I wanted to look at. But before we look at that next move, I'm going to go back a bit. To yes, to this position. So not playing c4. So now we just have to finish this. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. So we're considering c4, and realize that c4 is not considered a bad move. It's not really a bad move. It's just not really. Bro, even if he was drunk and you won, it's a win. Take it. Take it. Take it. Yeah, so so yeah, so the main game plan is going to be knight, pawn, trade off, and then queen. And you still get the same position, similar kind of position I was talking about, a boringish middle game position. That's basically what c4 gives you. So now we know that if we want to play a boringish, drawish game, c4 is definitely a must in this kind of position. We have learned something new, right? Oh, damn, it fell out. Okay, that's fine. So yeah, so he plays e6, knight e3 is a move recommended. And so now I've checked this move. So the next move we should look at was okay, this move I've actually checked it out a little bit more, so I know that this is what I'll play. I've researched this move. What I haven't checked is this move, and this move I really don't like. So let's figure out what the opponent could do after we play this move. And then we can definitely play a game, but let's finish with this, okay? Okay, so here his plans go with e6. Okay, the common plan is e6, E6 is a common plan, isn't it? Yeah, E6 is going to be a common plan. E6 is going to be a common plan. And then bishop d3. So yeah, our opponent is definitely going to go either knight bd2, knight bd7 with this, or here, knight, and then that. Those are the possible moves our opponent is going to go for. I'm looking at the engine. I'm not making up my own things, okay? don't expect that from me. So yeah, that is what we could have done. Of course, I would still go for my favorite line, which is this. I know some of you say double pawns are bad, but this is very nice. This is very nice. It's boring listening to computer suggestions. That is true. That is true. So what we did was we first looked at the game. That is, we looked here first. We went through every single thing we thought about the game, and then we moved to the engine. So that's what we are trying to understand here, that you want to have your own understanding about the position objectively first before you come to the engine suggestion. So that's what we are looking at. So we've looked at our moves, we've looked at where we felt we should have made improvements, and what we are looking at is with the engine is those specific moves. So we're not going to look at the whole game, we're going to look at the specific moves where those problems happen. Now this is a quick form of analysis. This shouldn't take you that long. Of course, there's deep form of analysis, which is what I'm not doing today. That kind of analysis can take you about an hour, depending on what you're looking for, what you're trying to improve. So yeah, it is boring, but it's worth it. Trust me. Yeah, so let's continue. So this is the position I usually like to go for. So we got c4 here, and I said I didn't like bishop to g3. So bishop g3 is what I played, and it's the least most acceptable move here. I am guessing the reason why it's so low on the computer's suggestion list is because of I'm focused. I'm guessing it's because of how bad my position kind of looks like afterwards, as in my position is kind of passive afterwards. But I still don't like this. For example, allowing either queen or pawn takes, allowing my opponent to get e5. Like I said, in such positions, allowing e5 is not a move you want. What I would consider here is c5. Again, like I said, this is me. So this is something I have to take note of. Here I can't play c5 and go for a queenside attack. Engine doesn't like it, but it's still a possibility, right? This is the whole thing about pawn tension, which I still don't understand. Knight f3 is a very easy move to see. I think here my pawn structure is much more solid. I think that's what the engine is trying to argue, is that my structure is more solid. And I think here you definitely want to play f3. I think any other suggestion is not where you want to be, but knight f3 stops e5. Like I said, if you allow this move, you're in trouble. Sorry, a lot of trouble. So knight f3 I think is a must. Knight f3 I really believe is a must. Your opponent might castle here, and I think then you can play c5. Let's see if the engine c5 is not considered. You resolve the tension in the center, and then you can go for the queenside assault. I think is what it's going to go for. Yeah. So the engine prefers this variation as compared to what I did. What else could we have done here other than taking the bishop? Knight h4 instead of c5. Knight h4. Knight a4. Wait, let me see. Wait, let me go to the wait. Bishop takes. Knight here. h3 or a4. The line I just looked at. Okay. Sorry. Takes here. Knight f3. Knight f3. If castles, then knight h4. Okay. Okay. I get you. Yeah, putting pressure on this bishop. Okay, here. I mean, you trade off bishops and that's useless. So maybe you want to play this. But this is. I mean, it's not bad. Yeah, Royals is still in the past. Don't worry. One day this internet will get stronger. But yeah, I'm on your line right now. Let me hold on so that you can see that I'm on your line. So yeah, this is not bad. This can easily switch into an offensive line. This can easily switch into an offensive line. So I like the way you're thinking here. I indeed do like the way you are thinking here. G4. No home for your opponent. I think here you can take and then takes here. Maybe you have to worry about this a little bit first, but yeah. This is actually the engine. The engine loves what you are saying, Royals. The engine does love what you are saying. The engine indeed does love what you are saying, Royals. So let's go a little bit. Let's go back, and let's see the next thing we spoke about, which was Queen A3. So of course it does. Of course, you are the expert. Queen A3 is completely okay. It's not so bad. Queen A3, third move on the engine's list. What the engine was expecting here was this, and I think here you play C6, and then C6. What do you do? Do you then close the structure, or do you now take? And now you take. Okay. I don't think your opponent takes with the knight. I think he takes with the pawn. Yeah. Queen A3 drops your pawn. That's true. I think temporarily or something like that. But yeah, Queen A3. Queen A3 seems to try to stop your opponent from castling by. It does nothing, to be frank. So that was a wasted move, and the engine accepts it. It says it's not that bad, but this is what I did. And the point is now that if he blocks or something, I can go takes, and then oh, okay, yeah, right. Okay, takes here, and then takes. I think if you play this and your opponent comes this way, you just take. So I mean, I don't think this is worth it. So yeah, I think that's basically, yeah. And then the last thing we wanted to look at was yeah, knight h4 here. Knight h4 here, attacking the bishop. Is it on its radar? Nope. Knight h4 is nowhere on the engine's radar here. Yeah, so like I said, knight h4 makes no sense. Knight takes e4 is what I said makes the most sense, because if takes, you can even try and sacrifice the knight. Am I right? Knight d4, knight d4, knight d2, knight d2. Come on, knight d2, knight d2, knight d2. He doesn't like knight d2. I kind of like knight d2. I don't think I lose that much of an advantage, but knight d2 looks fine. Let's see what the engine thinks after this. Yeah, knight d2 is not so bad. Knight d2 is not so bad, but you have to play only moves. Otherwise, your position just falls, and that's the problem about playing this move. So, regardless of the fact that it's good, it seems you have to play only moves, else everything you did is just a waste of time. So, if here you don't play e4, you don't really get anything out of it. But if, let's say, pawn takes, if that's what he has to play, right? Let's see. Okay, he doesn't have to take. He can just retreat his bishop back. Okay, and that's fine. So, but if he decides to take, it's not so good of an idea. Okay. So, like I said, this is, I think, the best way for white to have gone. Takes here is the best way white could have gone. That's what I believe. Yeah. So these are the slight improvements you can make, because in speaking, what am I trying to say? What's the word I'm trying to say? This, realistically speaking, you can actually get this position over and over again in a game. There are some games they would never repeat themselves, so trying to understand what happens in the position may not be necessary, but this kind of game can definitely happen again, and I definitely will play c4 again in another game. because I play the same variation over and over again in the London system. I think that is very, very wrong. So I think this is a realistic game that could happen again. So most of these corrections I'm making are very, very important. Yeah. So for example, Queen A3 here is wrong. It's not something you could play. The next thing is that C4 is fine. The moves I played in conjunction are kind of fine. Here we have to take the bishop next, and then we have to relearn the position again. So now we know we don't play this. We will get similar positions, but now we make slight improvements and our position is better. Funny thing here is, okay, maybe our opponent didn't make objectively the best moves, but even with the suboptimal moves we played, we still kept the initiative, which goes to show that our moves went completely bad and we could still play the exact same thing, right? But maybe against a better opponent, it's not going to be the best kind of way to play. Okay, so that is this move. And here, let's just for funsies here. What does the engine say? Does it say go straight for the weak pawn, or does it follow what I'm saying? It says castles rook b1. Doesn't really go for what I'm saying. That's interesting. Castles rook b1. It doesn't go for bishop here, which is interesting. I feel like this is kind of like a slow way of doing it. And of course, my opponent did not have to play knight back. That is for sure. He did not have to play knight back. Knight back was actually a mistake, but the move again is what provoked him to make such an idea, which is fine by me. And at this point, we are definitely winning. We may not have won the pawn instantly, but at this point, it's winning. So many things are going for me. I have the knight versus the bishop. My opponent is not so active. His king side is weak. I mean, so many things are going for me in this position. So, yeah. And that was about it. And let's see here. We got this whole variation. I think here everything's fine. It's king e2 the move the engine wants to play. If the engine says castles, I'll be very angry. If the engine says castles, I'll be very angry. What? Queen d3? Okay, queen d3? Ah, come on. What kind of boring move is queen d3? Is this in queen d3 pawn push queen here? Oh, that's kind of boring. Queen d3, f3, a4. What? g4. This engine is boring. This is the most boring engine I have ever seen. Engine is too boring. It doesn't consider the move I played, which was king e2. It completely did not support king e2. Okay, so we have to consider that the engine is right here. Maybe not. I mean, how does your opponent stop king e2? Even if the knight comes back to defend, it makes no sense. h6 is the move, of course. We've seen king h2, but again, like king h2 doesn't really solve your issues. It just means that you can't sacrifice the rook like you were planning to, but you still have a proper position. It's not bad. It's not bad. It's not a completely bad position, to be frank. It is not a completely bad position, to be frank. Yeah, it is still winning regardless. Still winning regardless. Yeah, so that is going to be for this game. There are 2 more games I want to analyze, but if you have a game you want me to analyze, feel free to drop it in the chat. If you have any questions as well, feel free to let me know. I will look at them